Hey guys, so for a couple of years now, the Pi Hut have been pushing out these kind of geeky Raspberry Pi based like advent calendars where you've got 12 sort of mini projects that you kind of go through. And I thought I'd give it a try this year. So I picked myself one up. Basically it comes with a Raspberry Pi Pico, which I think just uses a bit sort of similar to an Arduino. So it's not a full I don't know if it's an RTOS, but either way, it is very similar. So I want to go through it and have a little play and see how it turns out. But it is quite cool. Just so you know, you don't sort of incorporate a guide or anything, so you kind of still have to jump onto their website and go through each of the daily projects as you go through each task. So cool. Let's have a play with it. So as I assumed, yeah, it's very much like the Arduino. Sorry, it isn't an RTOS, I forget what it is, it's just a standard microcontroller. But you use software called Thonny to get it going. I've actually used this before for a panel, an LED panel matrix that I've got. It's actually in a different video. But yeah, simple enough to get set up. I'm going to keep going through these, I think, and see how we go. So yeah, day 2, this is kind of ideal for kids, nice and simple. One thing I have noticed though, and I should already know this, I used to run a firm called Emmet Hardware where we used to sell a lot of this kind of stuff, is the cables are very fragile. I've already managed to break one, and as far as I can see there are no spares. But it was simple enough to get going again, the code was easy, yeah. So this was day 3, it was quite a nice little in enhancement, so they've added some buttons and such so you can kind of press bits and pieces and they all kind of do bits and bobs with the LEDs you did in the previous day. It's quite a nice way if you're trying to introduce people to sort of coding and sort of electrical engineering. Now you probably noticed that there is a cable there. Yeah, I had to run into the workshop and go and replace one of the jumpers. I could genuinely see that being quite annoying for imagine you got some kids building one of these and they sort of accidentally break something. It's so easily done. I do think they should have sort of incorporated some spares. Another nice point is where in the original day they set you up, basically told you where to place the Pico on the board. That does actually align with not the GPIO pin numbers, but just the physical pin numbers. So that made life a little bit easier because I could imagine that getting a little bit annoying. Now this is the same with any kind of Arduino project or similar. It is so easy to have one of these connectors kind of fall out of the breadboard, particularly if you can kind of see how fragile it is. But yep, that's cool. So rock and roll, on we go. Let's see if that works. Did a little bit of studio engineering with the code. As a software engineer for, I don't know, 15 odd years, I should probably know that. Right, so on to day 4. And here we are with day 4. An introduction to potentiometers, variable potentiometers and PWM, which is pretty cool. Simple enough, and again the examples definitely build on the predecessing days, which is again really good, I thought. So on we go. So on day 5 we introduce a buzzer, which I'm sure won't get annoying for the parents out there. But yeah, again building on the previous concepts, so we're still using PWM to generate a variable volume. Can also wire in our little potentiometer to raise the volume and lower it, which is quite a nice tip. Now another constructive criticism. So in this particular lesson they ask you to pull out the USB cable from here. Well, if anyone knows anything about micro USB, the connectors are notoriously fragile, so you need to be pulling it from the actual USB hub over there instead, where it's a bit stronger. I can see that not lasting very long if people are pulling that in and out all day long. But cool, a nice addition to the series. I can see what they've done, and I can start and see where the money that I mean, it's not a cheap advent calendar, but I can see why. I mean, the instructions are nice and clear. The way that they've written it out is they've got nice imagery with the diagramming they've used. So yeah, nice. So what we'll do is we'll move on and see what the next one's like. hopefully we get some more lights into it. So here we have with day 6, this introduces a bit of mathematics, some string manipulation, and a photodiode, which again builds quite nicely on the previous exercises. As you can probably see, that's not very good, is it? You can see it's responding to the torch. Sorry, I would have used the iPhone itself, but that kind of gives you a rough idea again. No huge learnings this time around, but yeah, it's looking good. Definitely continuing to build upon each session, each day, as we sort of sequentially go through the advent calendar. I'm now starting to wonder if I should have got one of these for my my cousin, but never mind, next year. So let's move on. Rightio, for day 7 we're now introducing a few other aspects of software engineering. We're now using the for loop, and we've introduced a PIR sensor, essentially a motion sensor. As you can probably tell, and just for your sanity, I've disconnected the buzzer. Essentially, if I move, those lights will flick on and off over a certain period. So yeah, another good addition. So another observation I've made is, you know, as we're going through this kit, or the advent days, we're starting to accumulate various, you know, parts and other bits and pieces that, you know, you can't really put them back in the box because each day often depends on the previous day, which means you've now got parts sort of, as you can see on my desk, are just sort of sitting around, not doing very much. And I think for the price of this kit, it would have been nice, even if it was cardboard, just a little component storage area where you could put back the components you've not used or you're no longer using at this point in time for use in, you know, future projects. So yeah, possible improvement there. You know, I think a cardboard solution would probably be sufficient. Maybe they could come up with something clever with, you know, the packing materials they've got here. But cool, very nice though. Fun little projects, and easy to modify the code as well, so you can also have a little play around with it. So yeah, cool. Right, on to the next project. So here we are at day 8. Now this time it introduces the Maxim temperature integrated circuit. I believe they're called the DS18B20 temperature sensor. Now, funnily enough, I wrote a library for Arduino must be 10 plus years ago now. So I'm quite familiar with this particular unit. Now in this particular example, what we've done is we're leveraging our 3 LEDs. When it's red, it's, I believe, below 26 degrees. It's amber above 26 to 28, and it's green for anything higher than that. So it kind of gives you a rough idea of sort of the temperature in the room. Now, just to show off, I'll bring in the thermal imaging camera. Let's have a quick look. So you can see that's hovering around, yeah, so it's about 25 degrees, which is about what the, I don't know what it's called, the sketch, is it called code here? I forget now. So if we look at the code, yeah, so we've got 26 and we've got numbers coming in. It's saying a little under 24. So what we'll do is if I just put my hand around this, unfortunately I haven't got 3 hands, hopefully we'll see that temperature start ratcheting up towards sort of human body temperature. So we're starting to go up a little bit. So yeah, we now move to amber. I don't know if I'm warm enough to get up to, oh yeah, there we go. So we're seeing 28. And I don't know if we can use this Raspberry Pi 4 to bring the temperature back down again. Let's have a quick look. Is that going to work in time? Yeah, it's gradually starting to drop again now. This Pi is not particularly cold, unfortunately. The heatsink's not particularly cold. It's been running most of the day. Let's see if we can just get back down to, it should just be coming up to it now. Yep, I'm seeing, just give it a moment. So according to the code readout, we're shortly coming towards 28. Come on, a little bit more, a little bit more. And I think we're about to cross over. Thrilling TV, this, isn't it? There we go. So we should be in. I'll just come under 28 now. Boom. There we go. And let's check again with the thermal imaging camera. What's that saying? Yep. So if I keep my hand steady, yeah, that's about. I mean, these things are only, they're very cheap. So yeah, so I think we saw 27 just then. So pretty accurate actually for a cheap part. And these are, by the way, also waterproof. So that's quite a funky little addition. I wasn't expecting them to incorporate this into this particular kit. Rightio. Let's go to day 9. And now we're rocketing to day 9. This time it introduces a tilt sensor, which I think is actually a really nice sensor to sort of demonstrate to kids or just new developers. They kind of get some real sort of immediate feedback. Now the final program or sketch, whatever you want to call it, in this particular tutorial does something very simple. It just counts the amount of times that the tilt sensor has been tilted. So again, it gives you that immediate feedback. It gives you something tactile, sort of tactile, but so you can just obviously see it in front of your eyes, which means that, you know, the child or whatever can go ahead, modify the code, see what what impact those changes make. So yeah, another one. So fantastic. Let's keep trucking. We're on the home straight now, so we've got 10, 11, and 12 to be done. So here we are with day 10 of the Maker Advent Calendar from the Pi Hut. Now this one is quite a fun one, I think. So basically what they've added is an infrared sensor. Basically it has a transmitter and a receiver. There's essentially a beam between these two components here, and when you break the beam, it will make a noise. So give you a rough idea. Now these fall in the same sort of ballpark as ultrasonic sensors, which do something similar but with ranging. They are good fun. They've even mentioned it on the Pi Hut tutorial, where they said you can use these things for like model trains. So you could have, for example, at a point within a model train set, if a train breaks the beam, it will stop the power and then reverse. Or you maybe want to light up a traffic signal or something like this. So it's a really fun sense to play around with. And actually, what they've gone ahead and done is they've added a break beam high score game. So essentially, in this game, your objective is to break that beam as quickly as you can within the 30-second period. Now that allows that introduces you to timers, the understanding around how you can use the Pico to measure a particular time period along with variables and all the other bits and pieces. So a really nice tutorial. Yeah, fantastic, a fantastic addition. So on we go to day 11. Now we're nearly there. This time on day 11, I hope it's 11, yeah it is 11, they've introduced the OLED display. Now I was pleasantly surprised to see that the code to actually drive this is pretty simple. Back in the day when I was dealing with 16:2 LCD displays, it wasn't necessarily that easy, that trivial to get it to work, but this was just an I2C display. And after a bit of spaghetti wiring here, it's worked quite nicely. So in this particular sketch / program, the tutorial basically says, okay, what we'll do is we'll bring in the PIR sensor, the light sensor here, and we'll output those values on the screen. Now, ironically, the lighting in here is not particularly great at the moment, but my workbench has got a whole ton of stuff over it. So, but ideally, at the moment in time, you can see it's got a percentage level of, well, it's basically demonstrating how dark it is in here. So we've got about 3%. If I just carefully raise my torch up, you can start to see that raise, and now look, we're off the charts now. I've pulled that almost over the sensor. Funnily enough, if I were to do this, you get to see the board a bit better. So in this, in this example, this is something really particularly useful, because now you've got the ability to use the Pico in isolation. Now you can hook up any sensors you like to it and display to the little OLED here. I believe it's got 4 lines on it, which is really handy just for outputting any sort of little bit of messages or otherwise you want to see. Again, I can see where the Pi Hut team are going with this, and so they're steadily building up bits and bits and bits. We've now had various sensors, tilt sensors, we've had LEDs. It's all starting to come together now. You can start to see that if you look at the tutorials they provided, you can start pulling them together and actually building something unique, or something you want to build yourself. So this is, absolutely great. I really like it. Now, minor criticism that I've noticed as I've been going through these days is the breadboards are not the greatest. I've noticed that for example, the hookup wires, they will only fit in one way. So in fact, I've actually already broken off one of the headers because it just wouldn't go in. In fact, I don't think you can probably see it just there on line 17, on tray 17. Not the end of the world, but it just means it's a bit fiddly. And again, there being no spares, I think is definitely an issue. I mean, it's not too bad for me, so I've got a bunch of stuff in the workshop that I can just replace it out with, but I would have liked to see some spares. And again, going back to my other point of, well, yeah, as you can see, as I've been going through this, I've been building up a bunch of parts, and I actually had to go fishing through for the PIR sensor, because I put it back in one of the boxes, assuming I wouldn't need it again for this particular exercise. But I did, so it took me a little while to find that again. But yep, we're getting there. So we're on day 12. That would be Christmas, I believe. So let's give that a crack, and let's see what they finish off the year with. Excellent. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Anyway, apologies for the dodgy filming, as always. Cool. Right, on to it. Hey guys, so this concludes our trip through the Maker Advent Calendar from the Pi Hut. Now, this last project turned out to be a little bit more difficult than the previous ones. Not because of the actual underlying complexity, but there appears to be a fault. I'm not sure if it's the light strip, or if it's the Pi, or if the breadboard is possibly not of the greatest quality. Essentially, as you can see, this is meant to be a fading animation, and it's just basically going a bit wild. I mean, you can see half the strip's not working, and this is all using the stock the stock sort of program they offer on the actual site itself. Now, the original pin, I believe, was pin 28, and that for me is just dead. So what I've done is I've switched over to pin 27, which is another ADC port. And that brings me on to a slightly related topic. When you go through this, I would highly recommend either printing out or having the sort of the pin layout nearby, because you'll notice that the pins that you reference here doesn't correspond with the physical pins. You actually need to be going, okay, so well, that's pin 27, we're referencing pin 27, but it actually refers to the hardware pin of 32. So keep that to hand. So I've had to switch this to 27, as I've just mentioned there, or in other words, hardware pin 32. And as you can see, it's still not working. So I don't know what's gone wrong here. I've spent a little bit of time trying to figure it out, but yeah, I've not got too far. And what I might do is I might hook this up to an ESP, because I've got something similar on the workbench that I can test and see which side of where the actual issue lies on this. Cool. Right, so what would I say in summary? So I mentioned in a previous segment that I recommend that we need some spares in this kit. There should be like another box with just a few additional jumper cables, a few more LEDs. I mean, they're very cheap components, but the problem is if you break any of these and you don't have any spares, you really have a problem then, because that's basically you put dead in the water. Now, as you progress through the kit, you do start building up spares, but obviously you don't want to be, jumping from, day 2 to day 6 just to grab an extra jumper cable that you don't want to spoil. You want to progress your way through it, and of course, as I sort of previously mentioned, there's nowhere really to put all the cables when you're finished with them. So as you can see, these are just dumped on my desk at the moment. And you'd think, okay, I can put them back in, but because each day mostly progresses on the previous day, you're using components from the previous day to build up the project. So you can't really put it back in again. So it would have been nice to have some sort of cardboard, container or something, or otherwise. But if you are doing this with your kid or you're doing it yourself, don't do what I've done. Get yourself a few little bowls or something and then stick it in there. I had intended to just sort of blast through this in an afternoon, but because day 12 proved to be a bit of a pain, I had some other project I'm working on at the same time. I didn't quite get around to it. So price-wise, so it isn't cheap at £40 plus VAT, and obviously, sorry, not plus VAT, plus shipping. I think, given the skill that's gone into it, that I think is a reasonable price. Obviously, there is, in theory, nothing to stop you buying all the components. I mean, they're all listed on the Pi Hut's website. You could just build this yourself, but there are some good components in here. I was quite impressed with, as I sort of previously mentioned, the break the beam sensor and a few other bits in there, which I wasn't really expecting, to be perfectly honest. There were some other components that escape me now that I think might have been worth including, or at least maybe an expansion to this to continue building upon it. Yeah, so I think that's everything I wanted to cover. So yeah, I hope that gives you an interesting look on, on the Maker Advent calendar, and possibly next year, if you want to go through it yourself, or if in fact you just want to do it on a rainy Saturday afternoon. All right, that's me, Miles. I'm signing out. Cheers.